are wading, Brutus, if I may put it that way, into a political hot potato, if you like, as we say, because there's always a debate about how much money you can pump into a system that doesn't work, but there's also the question of the other all political considerations. Let's begin by hitting the nail straight on the head. Is South Africa spending enough on its education system? And is it spending it in the right areas?
Well, I think South Africa, over the past 16 years, has shown great improvements in terms of education expenditure. I think education and health come as the largest expenditure of government to date. I don't necessarily have the figure per se, but that we can check. But the concern for me would be that let us look at where this expenditure has gone, focusing on education per se. One finding would be that such expenditure has gone much on payment of salaries, infrastructure development. We should now, as I would argue, that we need to focus more on what goes on in the classroom. It must not only be teacher salaries, it must also about upgrading their skills in order for them to provide quality teaching and learning in the classrooms. It must also be about textbooks. It must be about resources that learners need in the classroom for them to be able to have access to knowledge.
Is there the political will, do you think, in the South African government? As I said, let's talk frank here, because we're talking about the future of the nation, about the future of our children, the future of our legacy. Is there enough political will, do you believe, in the South African government to actually realize that education is the answer to every single problem that we're talking about today? We just have to be patient before the returns come in.
I think there is a political will to a certain extent. But you see, while there is that political will, I don't think that we're focusing on the right side. For instance, you are talking about matric results or matric examination that are coming next week. A lot of focus has been given to matric examination. But very few people have commented about the quality of teaching and learning in the foundation phase. I think we need to be making a lot of headlines about what goes on in the primary schools, about changing the quality of education there, because we cannot only be interested in the results in matric without really focusing on the foundation phase, because that is where it matters the most. Yeah. I think there is that political will, but I think we need to redirect our focus to the foundation phase.
Should that message be delivered to the unions? And I'm being very careful here. The unions particularly because they make the biggest song and dance about the need to increase salaries. And as one person noted, in the recent strikes, there was very little said about the amount of money that should be going into the infrastructure that comprise the schools, your desks, your books, your computers, and all the like.
Well, we are living in a democracy.
Yeah.
South Africa has embraced the freedom of people to express their views. and
you are being politically correct.
No, we need to recognize that. We are living in a democracy.
Sure.
But I think we need to deal with irresponsible unionism. We need a society where people on the ground, they take responsibility for the education of their children. And teachers should not only feel more accountable to their unions, they must also feel that they've got an obligation to account to the communities. So we need to see more participation by people in the communities, in the school governing bodies, so that when teacher unions decide to strike, they must decide on the basis that they know what the communities are going to do and the communities are going to say about it.
So perhaps should that education begin with the unions then, so that as they strike for better salaries, they should also be striking for more resources to be devoted to the schools, so that that makes their job easier and also enables them to show the results for which then they demand higher salaries.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that it should be the case. I think what we need today is a concerted campaign that focuses on improving the quality of education. Look at the efforts that we've put together in putting together the World Cup, for instance. Yeah. What if we were to sit as a country and say, education is one of the biggest priority, and let us focus our attention to it? Yeah. I think we can do a lot in terms of improving the quality of education. Yeah. So we need teachers who are committed. I mean, it is really absurd to find a professional teacher who is an affiliate of SACE, who is an affiliate of a union, going on public to saying that they will strike until February or March and they don't care. It's irresponsible. People need to show compassion about the future of the children that they are teaching. Yeah. And we need to see that commitment coming from the unions themselves. Unions must disown those kind of people, and they must really deal with such kind of characters, because while we empathize with their demands for quality, salary, better salaries, and so on, we also want them to feel for us as communities, so that they provide the quality of education, and we will also stand by their side.
I'm hoping that's a message that Mr. Vavi and the guys from SATU will be listening to and taking to heart. But let's look at best practice internationally, into other countries where we have seen an emphasis on the role of education playing a big part in the overall improvement of the whole society. I have two examples. One is a country next to us, Zimbabwe. We saw in Zimbabwe the amount of resources that were diverted to education, bringing the results 10, 15 years after independence. Has there been a similar focus placed here in South Africa? Another example would also be the US, where education is prized above a lot of other things.
Well, I think over the past 16 years, we're focused on the form and not the substance of a transformation on education generally, whether it is higher or primary or secondary education. We're focused more on the form, opening the doors of learning, putting democratic systems in place and so on. Yeah. But we've not focused on the curricula. Yeah. There has been an attempt, for instance, to introduce Curriculum 2005, which has been dubbed OBE, for instance. Yeah. But I don't think that we have done enough to really, we have only scratched the surface. I think we need now to move and talk about quality of teaching and learning. What those countries have done is that they have focused more on the foundation phase, building the capacity, the cognitive capacity of our learners to read, write, and count. And that is the basic that our education system should focus on. Yeah. So I can tell you that South Africa, compared to other countries in the world, has performed badly in terms of literacy, in terms of numeracy, in terms of maths and science, at primary and at secondary level. And it's because we have not focused on the basics of education, which is arithmetics, literacy, and reading and writing, actually.
Have you taken these findings to the education department?
Well, not formally. But
can you take them informally and let us know what happens there? I think it's important, because really, the problem that we're talking about, I mean, we can argue until we are blue or black in the face.
No, the education department is fully aware of the challenges. They have got their own studies, which they call systemic evaluation, which they conduct, I think, every 3 years, which focuses on grade 3 and grade 4 learner performances. Those studies confirm what the international studies are saying about the inability of our learners to read and write. And I think
also to think commercially.
Yeah, of course. Well, let's look at the skills shortage, for instance. How would we develop the skills capacity of our country to perform or to compete globally if we do not have people who can read and write?